Well, my name is Lena Vance. I'm 53 years old. I'm a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and I currently enroll students for university here in Arizona, where I live. I live just outside of Phoenix in Mesa. You know, we have lots of kids around us and grandkids that we like to spend a lot of time with, and we are a blended family of 6 children. That's it. We just have learned to be very grateful and live our best life. Every day is a blessing. So I really honestly had no symptoms that are typically involved with what I was diagnosed with, which is diffuse large B-cell non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I was told after the fact that typically affects men who are over 65. And so we just really had no idea. I honestly thought I possibly had a UTI. I had a little bit of blood in my urine. I went to urgent care the first time initially. I didn't have any pain. I had no fever. I had no night sweats, weight loss, any of that. But I went in and they did the routine test and gave me an antibiotic and sent me home. And that alleviated the blood in the urine for a few days, not very long. And then it came back heavier and with clots in it. And that's when we knew there was a problem. It was completely out of the blue. I mean, I was healthy. We were newlyweds. We were pretty much about a year and a half into our marriage. And we were in the process. We had just sold a house that we had as a rental, and we were doing some work on the inside of it. And then the next month, we were celebrating my son's birthday in January. And I remember going to the bathroom that night at the restaurant 3 times. And I thought perhaps I was getting a period, wasn't sure. But I had no pain and there was nothing. It was just kind of strange. And then the next couple of days, it just seemed like there was always blood. And I thought this is weird. Like maybe I really have a UTI or it's in my kidneys. I didn't know. And so the reason I went to urgent care was to make sure, there was nothing else going on. So I took the antibiotic that they gave me for a week. And the blood had alleviated. There was no blood for probably about 3 or 4 days. And then it started to come back slowly. And I thought, maybe this infection's coming back. Maybe it's farther into my kidneys than I thought. But I still didn't have any pain. I had no fever. I didn't really have any other symptoms but the blood. And then there were clots in the blood. And so it was getting harder. This is a lot, but it was getting harder to urinate because there were clots blocking the way. And it was a Sunday night. I will remember it forever. I was trying to use the bathroom and it hurt. I couldn't go at all because there was a blood clot blocking the way. I didn't realize that at the time, but I kind of figured with everything that had happened, that was the issue. And I was crying and my husband was like, look, we've got to get you to somebody. And I just was crying so hard I coughed and it was just like a crime scene. Like it was just really bad. So immediately the next day I called a urologist and I told them what my symptoms were. And I probably had to call 6 of them because they're so busy. We live in Arizona, a lot of snowbirds come down. So I figured it was probably one of them was backed up for about, 6 months. And I thought, I can't wait that long. That's a long time. So I found one that had an opening the next day, but it was with a nurse practitioner. I said, I'll take it. I will absolutely take it. That's fine. I went and saw her and gave a urine sample, but it looked like a cup of blood. And she said, she goes, everything that we've tested looks very interesting. So I'm going to send you over here and we're going to get a scan done. And that's when I went, this is not good. And they gave me the address. I went that same day. I went over there to check in and I drive into the parking lot and it was Ironwood Cancer and Research Center. So that's when I thought, oh boy, is this cancer? Like I didn't know because she didn't know and she didn't tell me it was. She said, we're going to take a look at it because we don't know what's going on. And I had the scan done and it was Valentine's Day and had no clue. I waited. And then on Monday, which was President's Day, I got a phone call and they said, we've looked over your scan. You have a tumor in your bladder. It was about a 5-centimeter tumor, which is the size of a lime. And they said, we're going to have to remove it immediately. So we're scheduling you for surgery on Thursday. I mean, this went from 0 to surgery. And I had the surgery done. And the urologist was amazing. He took out most of it. he couldn't remove all of it because it was attached to the wall of my bladder. And he had said if he removed it all, it would have perforated my bladder, and that's a whole different lifestyle for me. So he opted to leave part of it there just to protect my bladder, and I would have to do chemo and radiation. At the time, I didn't know that when he did the surgery, because initially going in, they thought I might have bladder cancer. And he said the tumor looked nothing like bladder cancer, which typically resembles a flower. And so we thought, okay, well, maybe it was just a cyst. At that point, we were like, wow, it's not cancer. That's great. We didn't even think it could be a different kind of cancer. So after my surgery, the doctor, he spoke to my husband and my mom, who had flown down to help. She lives up in Montana with my dad. And he'd said, we're going to send this off for a biopsy. And I went home with a catheter for a week just to kind of help my bladder heal. And the day I had my catheter removed, the doctor accidentally called my husband's cell phone on his way home from work, thinking it was my phone. So he ended up telling my husband my diagnosis. And my husband had to tell me, which was probably, I can't imagine being in his shoes. And he said, hey, Dr. Matthews called me accidentally, but he told me what's going on. And I was like, okay. Optimistic. I was just trying to be so optimistic. And he said, you have diffuse large B-cell non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I said, I don't know what that means. Basically, I was like, I have no idea what that means. And he said, it is a type of cancer in your blood. And he's very thankful that we caught it, because now you can get treated for it. You're going to do six rounds of chemo and a month of radiation, possibly. And I said, what? And he said, it's a cancer in your blood. It just decided to make a little home in your bladder. And thankfully, it was caught, because Dr. Matthews had told me this type is very aggressive. Had we not caught it when we did in February, I would not have made it to my birthday in September. It probably would have killed me before then. Okay, so after that, after we had determined my steps, I was referred to an oncologist at Ironwood Cancer and Research Center here, which was literally a mile and a half from our house. And I had no idea. It was kind of tucked away in a corner. And I met with Dr. Monique Chang. And the minute I went in there, I had my mom and my husband with me. I said, I have a lot of life to live. Can we get started ASAP? And she said, oh, you're a spitfire. And I said, I am. I said, this is not going to get me. We're going to do this. And she said, absolutely. So I started chemo. Well, the next step after that, we had set up the appointment for chemo, but I had to have an echocardiogram. I had to have a port placed, which you can see. I had a port placed. I had to have a bone marrow biopsy. They wanted to make sure that it wasn't in my bones. I knew nothing about staging. I was stage 1, which means it didn't spread to any other areas of my body. So that was why they did the bone marrow biopsy. They wanted to make sure it wasn't in my bones. And then the scans were to make sure it wasn't in any of my organs that were around my bladder, because my bladder pretty much contained it all, luckily, because it could have spread to my liver, to my stomach, to, all of those organs are all right there. So luckily my bladder just held it in, and, that's what saved me. So I did R-CHOP, which is a very common treatment for that particular type of cancer. But I also had the Neulasta device on my arm, which the device itself didn't hurt, but it helps rebuild your bone marrow. So it's very painful when you're healing from that. The injection is the day after chemo, and it injects you for about 30 minutes. And it's painful the next couple of days out. It was probably about a week after that you just kind of ache. Your bones ache because it's regenerating all those white cells for you. R-CHOP was difficult. My very first chemo, we went in at 7:30 in the morning, and they had told us it was roughly, 5 to 6 hours. Well, for us, it was almost 11 because I had a reaction to one of the medications. I believe it was vincristine, which they call the Red Devil. That one was brutal because the first time I had it, I turned really red, and I felt like my insides were made of lava. I felt like I was melting, and it was that bad of a reaction. And I thought, I'm going to get sick. So they had to slow down the drip for that. And the bag was pretty good sized. And I remember just sitting there, and they slowed the drip down, and that helped. So I never had a reaction again, but in between each medication, they gave me a Benadryl. So I was completely groggy by the end of the day. Honestly, I'm not sure how my husband got me out of the car, into the house, into the whole situation so I could sleep. But I just remember that being a very, very long day. So every 3 weeks, I did chemo. So that went from March to July 2nd. My very last treatment was on my husband's birthday. So I had to take prednisone as well, which is not my friend. I know that it's very helpful for a lot of people, and it is part of the regimen for this particular type of cancer. I was taking 5 prednisones a day for 5 days each time I had the treatment, so every 3 weeks. I gained a lot of weight because of it. Normally you think cancer patients lose weight because of chemo and they're sick and nauseous, and that may be the case, but the prednisone just, started packing on the pounds. I went through early menopause. Chemo put me into menopause. I had really bad neuropathy. I still suffer from neuropathy. It's 5 years later, and I still have some issues, not as bad as they were, obviously, but every chemo session, I would get a headache right here at the base of my skull, and nothing would make it go away, and it would go all the way down my arm. And I'm right-handed, so by the end of chemo, I couldn't tell the difference between hot and cold in my fingers. They were numb. My toes were numb. My skin, my hands and feet were a different color. They were kind of like a grayish, just because of, that's a typical change, I guess, is what I heard. There's many different things that can happen to you. But I did try acupuncture to alleviate some of the pain. It did not work for me. They tried to put me on like gabapentin and other antidepressants, but the side effects from those were so bad, I said I did not want to do them. I never did regain a period, so I got pushed into menopause, had heavy, heavy hot flashes. Like, I would have them for minutes at a time, not just a few moments. It would be every 10 minutes and they'd last 7 minutes. Every 10 minutes, it'd last 3 minutes. That was for probably about 6 months, midway through chemo until the end of that year. And then they've slowed down. I still have hot flashes. They slow down. I didn't take any hormone replacement therapy after my mom went through what she did. So I said, absolutely not. I'm not going to do it. I'll just naturally let myself, let my body figure it out. But the neuropathy is much better. I do use CBD oil, and I do take CBD gummies to help sleep. And that was the only thing that relieved the pain. So I was pretty good about keeping a journal. I'm very organized. I'm a Virgo, but I kept a journal. I kept every piece of information because I still have chemo brain. Like, it is a real thing. There are things that I've forgotten that people remind me of, and I really can't remember it. After chemo, I had a stutter. So it took me a while to kind of be able to talk again, to where I could piece a sentence together. I would go to talk and it would just not come out. And I just would sit there and think, and that look where people are just looking at you, waiting for you to say something, and you're just like, I don't know how to say it. Like, it's not coming out right. So that was a struggle, and that took me probably close to a year to kind of feel like I could speak normally again. And then the pain and all of that. But the CT scans, the PET scans, I had them often when I was going through treatment. I had one at the beginning. I had one at the midpoint. I had another one right before my final treatment to make sure it was going to be my final treatment. And then after my final treatment, I had one. But I've had to have a cystoscopy where they go up into your bladder with a camera. And my urologist at the time was wonderful. He has since retired, but I never felt any pain. And he was amazing. He was really good source of positivity. But I don't have to do those now. I don't have to have a cystoscopy anymore. I don't have to have scans anymore. They told me if I start to feel anything off, please come back and we'll check you out completely. But those days are gone. And I'm trying to think, after chemo, I did do a month of radiation just to make sure. The doctor wanted to make sure they got everything. So I did 1 month of radiation, and it was 1 treatment daily for the whole month of August in 2018. Radiation was a piece of cake for me because I didn't feel anything. I didn't have any side effects from radiation. They had told me you could have blood in your urine, and I hear that and I freak out thinking I don't ever want to see blood in my urine ever again. They said I could be fatigued. They said I could have burn marks. I had none of those. At the end of chemotherapy, they said that everything looked clear, but they wanted to do the radiation just in case. And then I did not have a scan again until November 6th. And that was when Dr. Matthews said there's no evidence of disease. So that is what I count as my anniversary date. So this past November 6th, and I was told by Dr. Chang that once you reach the 5-year mark with this particular type of cancer, you are considered cured. And I was thankful that she had removed my port when she did, because there are many patients that have to keep a port in for at least a year or two after treatment. She was confident enough to let me get mine removed. Oh, I was elated. They had just removed it and I had tape there, and I was like, I can sleep on my stomach again, and I don't have this object protruding out of my chest, and I don't have people staring at me. I don't care if you stare at me now. This is a badge of honor, honestly. So it was a good feeling to hear that there was nothing left, and when I saw Dr. Chang not long ago, she said, "You did it." And I said, "You helped me do it, because there's no way I could have done it alone." I did. I had a hard time after treatment because I went into a really bad depression, which made no sense. I had been used to this routine and being taken care of by these specific people, and just all the support. And then when you're done and you don't have that routine anymore, and even your friends, like at that point, well, she's done with her treatment, she's okay. They kind of fall by the wayside. They check in once in a while. I mean, this is pretty common from all the people I've talked to. So it's not their fault. I mean, after you think about somebody going through cancer and then they're done with their treatment and they're in remission, a lot of times people think you're okay. We're not okay. I went through a lot of mental struggles. I had to go see an occupational oncologist. She was an integrative oncologist who helped me, with a diet, she was like a counselor basically, to try to get me back to what my new normal was, which I was really sick of hearing. I just wanted my normal life back, and it was never going to be like that again. But I knew there was light at the end of that tunnel, and I just had to keep going, because if I gave up, what good would I be to my kids and my grandkids and my family who were watching me struggle, and they were helpless? You're the one that is in charge of your emotions every day. You have to get a hold of that and stay positive, because if you let go of that and you sink into this hole, it's really hard to get out of it. Everyone's journey is so different, but I think that aside from being an advocate for yourself, when you get diagnosed, do not Google anything. Do not do it. Don't have family members do it. Don't have friends do it, because I was told that immediately and I listened. I did not do it, because had I done it, that would have probably put me down a rabbit hole of despair and giving up. And everyone's journey is completely, completely different. So stay on track, listen to your doctors. If they are not listening to you, find a new doctor, find some support groups. I just want everyone to know that there is hope. Don't give up. Stay fighting, stay strong.